now you could take it
Got
away.
it. So, hi everyone. My name is Karyll. I am a writer. I'm also Dominican, and a lot of the work that I do is centered around inner liberation, spirituality, and the understanding of the self. I have been writing basically my entire life. I is what I do, is what I is. But essentially, a lot of the work that I center around is healing our voice and our relationships to relationships, which is our biggest relationship, ourselves. Um, I'm really excited today to be able to speak with you and to be able to go through this workshop with you guys, and just the process of what I go through in creative journaling. Today's workshop is called Adivina Within, right? It's spirituality through the pen and understanding ourselves through journaling. Um, as writers, we all have different methods and practices of how we write and how we enjoy our time writing or enjoy our voice and tone. And I find that, not everyone journals, right? Not everyone knows how to journal. Not everyone um, records like their daily activity or their daily sentiments in that aspect. And so I have worked over the last 10 years in creative journaling for myself personally. And so creative journaling is essentially using creative composition to record your sentiments. So before we get started, I did want to ask you guys to introduce yourselves, briefly, and to also just take a moment to say why you're here, like why you were interested in this workshop. So if you don't mind, I will just go down the list, and you don't have to turn on your camera if you don't feel comfortable, but I'll just to unmute yourself, or you can write in the chat as to why you wanted to join today's workshop or what made you interested in this topic specifically. So the first person I see is Miriam Pina.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
I'm Miriam, and I have a passion for languages. I found refuge in French. I would eventually want to write in French. I have, over the past 3 years, have become very spiritual, I guess, and discovering that aspect of myself has been liberating and complicated. And so I know that whatever I end up writing is going to have that as a core component. And so this was really interesting to me.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. The next person is Jasmine.
Hi. So I'm actually working on some spiritual poems, or, the term spiritual is so wide because for me, it encompasses faith plus, traditional, faith-based stuff plus non-traditional things as well. If people don't have a particular um religion or tradition they write about. For me, I'm definitely considered a Christian poet when it comes to my spiritual stuff, but I'm definitely non-conventional and non and experimental when it comes to my work right now,
Right.
surrounding this type of topic. um so yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
okay, awesome.
I'm open to whatever you have to say in the moment. So
Okay, super.
thank you
Yeah,
for that. Thank you for sharing that.
you're welcome.
The next person I see is Sumaya. Hi, Sumaya.
Hello, my name is Sumaya Hernandez. Um, so I joined this workshop because I'm Muslim, but I'm also Dominican, and I'm trying to figure out how to write the story of how spirituality has had like a role in my life. I'm also trying to get back into journaling. I haven't journaled how I want since I was in high school. And I feel like it's because there's like this thing where I'm like not cool with talking to myself. And I feel like it would be an interesting idea to kind of put myself into a story, but it's like me telling myself my story. So that's why I'm here in this workshop.
I love that. Yeah. And I think you brought up a good point in narrating, not only narrating your story, but being able to connect the different points of your story in journaling. And I feel like that is the goal that I have, not only to share with you guys today, but what I do with myself is exactly that, is like how to be able to narrate my story as me as my main character, but how I would like to, what I'm interpreting the present as. So thank you so much for that. Hi, Kimberly.
Hi. So yeah, as I was saying, the reason that I came here, it's like curiosity first of all, and then spirituality. Because I just want to understand better how to write, because
Nice.
I write a book. I wrote a book about to be published, but I'm not a writer. It's just funny
You're a
how
writer.
spirituality, comes out of the way without you. So I just want to understand better there. Yeah.
Okay. I like that. Hi, Karina.
Hi, hello. Hola a todas. My name is Karina. I am here because I would like to learn just a little bit more about journaling. And I'm amateur journaling writer because I try to understand my life, understand how I am writing. And this is
Right.
what I do. Gracias.
Thank you. And the next person I see, Adela. Hi, Adela.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adela, and I'm excited to be here. I've been wanting to do one of these workshops for a while, and I'm glad that I'm starting with this one. And a big part of why this particular workshop interested me was because I practice mindfulness and journaling and all that in my everyday life. So as I work to be more connected with myself, I feel like this could just be like another way for me to connect. So that's why I'm here.
Yay. I like that. Yeah, another method, another tool to add.
Yes.
Thank you for that. The next person I say is Leah Castillo. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Leah Castillo Espinosa.
Hi, my name
Hi.
is Dia. Yeah, also it's the first time I wanted to join the workshop for some time, but I'm also in Europe, so the time difference is tricky for me and I got lost. But so I'm making it today, and it's nice to see all this beautiful community. And the title mostly interests me because I also myself in a past for some last 11 years of discovering my own spirituality within and how I want to build it. So it interests me of how to mix it with writing. I also been writing for a long time in my life. I don't dedicate myself professionally because I mostly work as an editor, but I want to focus more on my own writing as well now.
Wow, that is so interesting. And honestly, thank you so much for joining, even with the time difference.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it so much. The next person I see is Senia Santana.
Hello. Are we doing interruptions? I missed the beginning because of I didn't have the link.
So it's just a brief introduction. You can introduce yourself and why you were interested in this workshop, or why you're interested in coming here today.
Okay. Bueno, Buenos dias to everybody. I have a little time difference too, so I was like unsure if it was morning or afternoon. But the reason why I wanted to come to the workshop, actually, Karyll, I tried to Google you and I couldn't find anything, but I found a podcast episode. And as soon as you said your Instagram handle, whatever it was, De Colonista, that's when I was like, I'm gonna go, because I have a strong passion for decolonizing spirituality. Sometimes I just get mad. There's a lot of sacred rage inside of me about what spirituality even looks like, and a lot of what's on mainstream. And I thought I could have a good perspective to share. So that's why I'm here, Sanya. I've done a lot of things, but right now I'm gonna say I'm a professional human, just trying to be happy and do good things.
Wow. Welcome. Welcome. We
Thank you.
receive it. Thank you so much for that. The next person is Belkis.
Hola, bueno, mi nombre es Belkis Marte. Yo en realidad no sabía que hoy el tema era la espiritualidad. Yo simplemente entré, esta es la segunda vez que entro y genial que podamos escribir sobre nuestra espiritualidad. Yo he escrito ya 7 libros y no lo he escrito porque yo sienta que soy una escritora, sino por la necesidad tan grande que tengo de expresarme. Y a veces esa timidez que lleva uno por dentro. Por ejemplo, ahora mismo esperando y sin saber cuándo me toca, el corazón como que se va acelerando. Entonces uno, ay, me toca a mí ahora, ¿qué yo voy a decir? Entonces todo eso que nos pasa a nosotros son cosas que llevamos por dentro y a veces no nos atrevemos a expresarlo. Y yo también creo que es muy importante que yo diga aquí que yo tengo un proyecto que se llama El Tablazo Lee, donde pongo puntos de lectura en los campos de mi pueblo y ya hasta del país. Empecé con uno hace 2 años y ya voy por el punto de lectura número 22. Y eso lo hago simplemente con personas generosas que me donan libros. Así que los invito a ustedes también a donar libros para ese proyecto y vamos a continuar escribiendo. Yo no siento, yo escribo porque por ya lo que le expresé, pero no fue que yo estudié para escribir, que yo estudié literatura ni nada, sino que lo hago porque, a veces digo porque me da la gana. Así que vamos a continuar escribiendo. Un placer estar aquí con ustedes.
Hay mucha gracia y esa es la vida de la escritura, para expresarte, a tener el deseo de expresarte tanto que tiene que ponerlo al papel. Si tú quieres, tú puedes agregar, o si tú quieres que yo agrego la información tuya de ese proyecto, o puede ponerlo en el chat so that we can look it up.
Claro, claro. Sí, sí.
Yeah.
A mi Facebook van a ver todo eso y mi interés es que los niños cambiar sus mentes y darle más oportunidades a ellos a través de la escritura, porque nosotros queremos buenos presidentes, pero tenemos que empezar con los chiquititos a darle todo eso que nosotros necesitamos en un adulto. La semana pasada, Idalmi Acosta me regaló 24 libros. La conocí aquí.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
Sin conocerme, sin conocerla, y así es que el proyecto se va avanzando y va cogiendo color y cuerpo, simplemente por la gente que quiere ayudar. Yo siempre digo que la gente siempre quiere ayudar, simplemente no saben qué es lo que tienen que hacer, y ahí sale Belkis Marte. Si me dejan, yo sigo, así que déjame ya apagar mi micrófono.
Si puede poner el enlace o la información de contacto en el chateo, por favor, para uno saber. Yo estoy interesada.
Voy a buscar la lista también, que pueden entrar a Amazon y comprar libros para mí, para mandarlo para esos niños allá en los puntos de lectura, pero le voy a poner en el link, en el chat. Gracias.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to preface also that my Spanish, very much like Mark Anthony, my English is not very good looking, pero el mío es de Spanish. So I will do my best to communicate back and forth. I can understand entirely. My parents only speak Spanish, but I do what I can with what I have. So I really do appreciate it. And I love what you shared, Belkis, because that is one, not only the life of the writer and you explaining your journey of how much you've written and also how much you're giving back to your community, but how much of the community is also giving back to your beliefs and your projects. And that's what I love as well, is like seeing that. Thank you. The next person I see is Eduardo. Hi, Eduardo.
I hit the wrong button and everything. How's everybody? I joined today because it's a wonderful community that I didn't know was here. It's rare to find creative people, period, especially Dominican creative people. So in general, the Sunday meetings are wonderful, but today in particular is really wonderful because I'm writing. As of very recently, I'm comfortable calling myself a writer in general, or even an artist, even though it's always been there if I really paid attention. And in the darkest moments, what people turn to typically is that like sense of what's inside, and typically that looks like spirituality, but it also can look like art. And a little bit of what I'm writing these days has to deal with what we know to be true in one culture really isn't true in another. And I think that immigrants and people of color and Dominican people and just, you know, we did the little baile in between the little two cultures. And it's almost crazy making sometimes because we want to rely on our spirituality and what we know inside of our hearts to be true. But that really doesn't fit into the American system very often. And so then there's this little dance that you have to do where, am I going to be like them or am I going to be like the people who I know? And often you sacrifice what you feel inside just to survive. And can we really, you know, expect that? And then on top of that, a lot of you know that I'm writing about masculinity because I've seen a lot of men try their best and fall short by society's standard. And I think it's just quite tragic when really they've just been disconnected from this like truth. And so the topic today, I think, is going to resonate really well with me just because it seems to be checking off a lot of boxes, which is figure out what is true to you. What is your religion? What does it mean to you? And so, yeah, so that's it.
Thank you so much. I love also the sharing of transforming our ideas of masculinity and being able to touch that within other men as well, of sharing the wide scope of what true masculinity is, other than what we see it as perceived to be. So thank you so much for that. The next person that I see is Melody.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Hi, good morning.
Thanks for having this space, for hosting and all.
Thank you.
I guess why I'm here, I try to join every Sunday, to be honest. It's like my designated time to write. I'm trying to find more time to write, but this one for sure, like, you know, is the one thing that I hold, you know, permanent in my schedule. But this particular one, I was interested in because I journal every day. I think someone else said that too, but I journal every day, and I just thought it was really cool to see like creative journaling. I don't really know what it is or what we're going to get into, but I'm interested, to be honest. Since I journal every day, I thought it would be like a good thing to incorporate in my daily routines, and it might help me, I don't know, just get my thoughts out better on a daily when I do journal.
Thank you. I'm excited for it too. Thank you so much for that, Melody. I also wanted to add, if anyone that has joined in after we previously discussed introductions, if you don't feel comfortable speaking on camera, it's okay to introduce yourself through the chat. I'll also read it out loud if you'd like. That's just in case, if you'd like to introduce yourself through the chat. So the next person I see is Kiki.
Hi, buen día. How is everybody? I'm sorry. So good morning for me, or for where you are. My name is Kiara Camila. I usually use Kiki for short. And first and foremost, this is my first one that I've been meaning to go to one of these meetings for a while. And I'm actually Karyll's sister. So we're writers in this family. But I wanted to join not only because she's my sister, and obviously I'm gonna support every single thing that she does. But we are very blessed as siblings to be very close, and we discuss spirituality in our daily lives. I also journal. I don't journal as often as I would like. I journal maybe every couple of days or maybe every week. Yeah, with the avatar hoodie on. But yes, it's something that I've always been interested in. Spirituality is very deep in my life. And currently I get nervous saying this because it's something that I'm working on, but I am a screenwriter. That is my goal in this life. This is something that I dreamed of doing for so long and that I'm working on. And I want to tell stories like ours, like people who look like us, people who don't look like us, and people who come from similar places. So yeah, eso soy yo, con mi cafecito en esta mañana. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. It was beautiful to hear
Karyll,
that.
before you go on, I just want to let everyone know that you could rename yourselves. Like we have someone who was named iPhone. If you could put your name on your account, that would be great. So we know how to refer to you. All right, you could go on, Karyll.
Okay, and the next person I see is Yulisa. Hi, Yulisa. Good morning.
Hi everyone. So I usually join the writers workshop every Sunday. And I'm always late because I actually go to church before I come here. So I'm actually interested in today's workshop because I have a chapter in one of the projects that I'm doing that's called The Winner's Limp. And it has to deal with my journey in reading the Bible and going through my recovery. And I have thought about the ways to approach the chapter, but I'm hoping to get a better perspective through this work. So thank you again for leading it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Yulisa. And it's always nice seeing you and hearing what you share.
Thank you.
The next person I see is Diana.
Hello, everyone. My name is Diana Alejandrina. Some of you may know me. I'm a writer, storyteller, poet, creative writing mentor. It's the first workshop that I attend this year, and I was really excited because of the title. I'm also working on a project, and it aligns perfectly with it. So I was like, let's go. And I just recently moved to Atlanta, so it's been chaotic, so I haven't really found the time to just sit down and write, sit down and focus, or even journal. So this is just a great opportunity to get back in the community again, write, connect, be vulnerable, which is my thing. And yeah, just meet new faces. So really happy to be here.
We receive you openly. Thank you so much for that, Diana. Welcome. And I think we have a couple more. So I see Idalmi.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yeah, so I've come to a few of these before. I write every day. I am working on a novel. I'm looking to connect with other creative people. I'm like in a process in my life where I'm really, evaluating my spirituality, my beliefs, systems. So I think that this was a good fit. But I was gonna join no matter what. But yeah, I don't have anything else to say. It's great meeting y'all.
It's so great to meet you too. Thank you so much, Idalmi. And I think we have two more. I see G.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I try to come every Sunday. I came today because Sundays are a motivation for me to write more and to get on my projects. La Jaganeria is strong with this one. So, you know, I know Angie once told me, I think it was like 3 Sundays or 4 Sundays ago, she was like, we need to have a consultation. You need to get with it because I've been doing this since like COVID. And again, you know, the force is strong. So I am trying to use this as my motivation when I see you guys and everybody talks about their projects, and it's almost like, yeah, I know, see, you can do it. So I just want a round of applause for everyone else who's on target with their stuff, because that's my motivation. So I appreciate everyone. And I look forward to writing about spirituality, especially the stuff that was taught to us that we didn't know, right? How it affects us as adults, but shaped us, unfortunately, as kids, and in our thoughts and how we see the world. So looking forward to today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing, G. And we have one more. I don't know who it is, but it says iPhone. So welcome, iPhone. Hi, iPhone.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I didn't know how to change my name through the app. But my name is Christiana. I'm a writer myself, but I haven't really written in a few years. So I just really want to join this workshop to sharpen my tools and also I don't know,
Is
learn
that
from
correct?
others.
Christiana?
I'm sorry. Say
That's
one more
your
time.
name, Christiana?
Yes.
Okay. Isn't that appropriate?
Yeah. A lot better than iPhone for sure. I would say. So yeah, no, I'm just here honestly to learn and to just get more experience through other experienced writers. But yeah, that's why I'm here today.
Thank you so much, Christiana. Thank you for joining us today. You are welcomed and received. Thank you. And we have one more, Dries. Hi, Dries. I'm sorry if I forgot you.
It's okay. With so many little boxes. Hi guys, I'm Driz. I joined because similar to some of you guys, I kind of journal, have been journaling for years, have like boxes and boxes of my journals, and I'm kind of trying to find a creative outlet to kind of just take that journaling maybe a little bit further and learn how to express it. And obviously the topic of spirituality, as with many, is like important to me, and it's something that I have dived into in different ways. So excited to kind of learn about it in the writing space.
Thank you so much. Also, sorry, I mispronounced your name. So it's Driz?
You could say Dri in Spanish is like Dries. So it's either whatever comes out.
But thank you so much for that. So guys, I'm really excited to be able to compartir con ustedes and really get into this topic. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and the reasons why you're here. And also honoring the fact that we're all on different parts of our journeys, but sharing with us the ultimate goal of being vulnerable with ourselves and being vulnerable with each other. And I'm really grateful for this community and how we can come together in order to share that and grow bits and pieces every day with it. So before we begin, if you don't mind, you can have your camera on or camera off. That's entirely up to you. I did just want to take a couple of deep breaths just to center ourselves. We had a couple of introductions and just to really get started into the workshop. And so just to take a deep inhale from the belly. And then to release it, whether audibly or whatever feels natural to you. Again, inhale deeply from the belly. Hold and release. And one last time, inhale in from the belly. Hold and release. So I'm going to share my screen with you all. And if you'd like to take notes, you can, but I'm mainly going to just speak through it as I go through it. So as we discussed earlier, that the topic of today's workshop is Adivina within. When I think of Adivina, I think of to prophesize, to guess, to wonder, to look within, to discover is the way that I truly look at it, Adivina. Divining within ourselves is being able to find the natural fluidity between our voice and our spirit, and being able to uncover the sacred truths that are revealed to us through this voice, right? Our voice serves as a channel between the heart and the mind space, right? And because of that, there are things that can get blocked in between. There are things that come in with fluidity, and there are things that sort of charge our emotions so that we can be able to share that with authenticity, but also vibrantly. And so, you know, we all speak, and we all speak to ourselves in some way or some form. And I think that one of the biggest things for me is just understanding how important my voice works as a somatic tool into healing not only my body, but healing my past experiences, and having an understanding of how that's affected my own family and lineage. So today we're going to talk about creative journaling, right? So creative journaling for me is to strengthen the bond of myself through the process of trust, right? Creative journaling is really like, as you journal, I feel like there comes a point where you don't necessarily know what to write anymore, right? You can journal about your day. You can journal about certain emotions. You can journal about whatever it is that comes to mind in the moment. And I use different methods and practices in order to enhance my ability to find motivation for writing. I feel like sometimes we get stuck in a certain spot that it becomes difficult to not only express ourselves, but untangle our thoughts. And so journaling for me as a daily practice and tool has worked as a method of healing in order for me to untangle my own thoughts, express my emotions creatively, release pent up energy, and also at our core to reconnect to my truth. I found that integrating journaling daily as a daily practice or as a spiritual discipline has given me the space to trust my voice more, and process certain emotions and past experiences that I wasn't aware of, or I wasn't sure of how I'd be able to release that. Just a little bit of part of my history, and I'm sorry if I'm like stumbling across my words because I'm feeling it now as I'm speaking, which is funny, but just a little bit of my history. Me as a writer, I feel like I went into journaling because from a very young age, there were certain things I just couldn't say out loud. Coming from a Dominican household and a very almost more like masculine driven energy household, there were certain things that I just couldn't say out loud. And I was gifted a journal by my grandpa when I was like 6, like the ones that you lock it with your voice. And so that was my method of saying the thoughts that I couldn't share out loud. And so over time, that was just my safe haven of being able to just express myself and go, even if it's silly, to express the things that were going along in my day. And then it became important for me to be able to kind of uncover what I've written over time, like being able to reflect back and look back onto what I've written over time. So I wanted to talk about the four major components to creative journaling, right? So one of the things that I noticed that is very helpful for me is that I've been taught along the years is free writing. This is just you giving yourself the chance to write whatever comes to mind. And let's say, for example, you give yourself a topic that you would like to discuss for the day, writing whatever you can within 2 minutes, like as much as possible. The second major component is self-reflection. As we talk about writing in the form of, as we talk about writing and in its connection to spirituality and our voice, honesties and self-reflection is really where it offers us the abilities to not only see ourselves vulnerably, but to allow ourselves to have compassion for our experiences and the things that we can make sense of in the present based off of the past. Another major component is creative composition, right? When we think about creative composition, I want basically to focus in on the fact that we all write differently, right? Some people resonate writing in poetry. It is their form, it is their coded language, it is their way of understanding a speech that will relate to them, and it won't necessarily need to be understood by others. So the creative composition aspect is writing in the form that you relate to creatively, but will make sense for you. It's going to resonate for you. So for others, it is through narration, narrating their entire experience, narrating that emotion or that day. For other people, it is in the form of a short story, putting yourself in the position to write as the author and not the person who's experiencing it, right? So the point of creative composition and journaling is to actually use the other components of your own storytelling and choosing your method of storytelling. Because I feel like sometimes we get stuck in trying to say like, today I felt this, or I felt blank. Whereas it's like grief came to me in the waves and the forms that knocked me over and I didn't expect it to be, right? Just finding a different way of explaining those emotions. And then the last major component is honesties unspoken. Your journal and your process is to always give you the space to be able to be honest with yourself. I feel like a lot of the times we reach certain points where certain honesties and certain reflections, we're almost afraid to say out loud because we feel like it might be definitive to our identity. Whereas this process is more to open the possibilities in curiosity. Curiosity is going to offer you a liberation and an understanding and questioning that will not limit you based off of fear. And so inner liberation of the voice is often found between the release of fear and judgment and the trust of the stories unfolding within the narration. What does that mean? That our process, we're allowing it to unfold as it is, right? And we're all beings of life. We're all experiencing life. Life unfolds as it is, and we're just trying to make sense of it. And so this is our journey and our process of looking within in order to be able to connect the dots within our own selves. I've noticed that just in my own spiritual journeys, and grateful for the spiritual mentors that I've had over the last 15 years that have really allowed me the space to be myself, and allow me to explore more through curiosity, asking questions. And this is what I want us to get to today, is just asking more questions and being okay with the questions that we ask. So I did want to get into this reading material. Let me see if it clicks through. Oh, it did. Perfect. So this is Sisters of the Yam by Bell Hooks. Let me zoom out. Okay. And so far, does anyone have any questions? You can write in the chat. Okay. So starting at the highlighted, growing up, I learned to respect the reality of dying, not to ignore or make light of it. Mama would tell us often that life was not promised, teaching us to live in the here and the now. At the same time, we learned that there was nothing to fear about death. Many of the songs that we sang at church celebrated death and dying as a transitional state, taking a person from one realm of being into another. In the traditional world of Black folk culture, to mask grief or to pretend in any way that losing a friend or a loved one was not a cause for anguish or sorrow. In the traditional world of Black folk culture, death was a time for grieving and rejoicing. There was no attempt to mask grief or to pretend in any way that losing a friend or loved one was not a cause for anguish or sorrow. Death was one of the rare moments when it was socially acceptable for folks to let go emotionally, to break down, and to surrender to the grief. These healthy approaches to death and dying made it possible for Black people to confront and cope with loss. Since not nearly enough has been written about death and dying in Black experience, we can turn to fiction and catch a glimpse of those habits of being. In Toni Morrison's novel, Song of Solomon, the funeral service of Hagar is both a time of grief and rejoicing. Mother and grandmother come to mourn the death of their child. The anguish Reba and Pilati feel is expressed by their plaintive cry, mercy. The mourners accept this invitation to acknowledge their pain in the manner of call and response. When Pilati cries mercy, they collectively say, I hear you. They sing the song. In the nighttime, mercy. In the morning, mercy. At my bedside, mercy. On my knees now, mercy, 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 mercy. After they acknowledge profound grief, after they mourn, they then celebrate all that was joyous about Hagar, the love they felt towards her. And this is the final message that they share. She was loved. If anyone has anything to share or anything that maybe the sentiments that they felt by this reflection, you can speak if you'd like.
I would like to share something. Oh.
What? Yeah.
Oh, sure. So when you shared and it talked about death and grief and meaning, because the workshop is about spirituality, I am a biologist. And if you look at everything in nature, every single thing in nature never dies and never lives, really. It's all cycles, everything. And we're part of nature, we are nature. So we know when a relationship should end. We know when we need to let go. Let's say we have a child and the child is going off to kindergarten and we're crying, or the child is going off to college and we don't want that stage to end. And I think that from a spiritual perspective, and spiritual to me just means your relationship with yourself and with other. when you learn to master and like allow grief, like let yourself be sad and allow it, which society does not allow us to do, and really honor grief, it really transforms it. And then that last part where you remembered the loving parts by actually going through the death and literally letting things die. Like in winter right now in New York, it's, you know, cold and everything. You know, I used to tell people, well, you're supposed to be sad during winter. It made sense to me. People would tell me I was crazy, but I'm like, well, look outside. Like you're supposed to kind of be, and then, you know, spring comes, and for me, that's the new year. I don't even celebrate January 1st as the new year. It makes no sense to me. I celebrate my birthday as the new year because I was born on March 21st, first day of spring, first day of the zodiac. It just makes sense. So I think like once I started looking at life from that perspective, I was able to like really change my life. Because if you realize after death, in nature, there's always a rebirth. There's always something new. So I'm like, oh, if I want something new, I get it. I have to let something die. Because law of thermodynamics, energy is not created, not destroyed, just transformed. So same thing in my life. And when I wanted something new, we're like, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? I'm like, I understand the cycles. So I just wanted to share.
That was beautiful. That was very insightful. And I love that you mentioned allowing the natural processes in order to grieve, like as the earth itself shows us is how we feel and inner reflect. Because I too feel the same about my new year being in the spring for that same reason. Just seeing how the natural cycles play out. But thank you so much for that, because that on the nose. I love it.
Thank you.
And I also see Eduardo.
I was gonna type it out, but I guess I'll say it out loud, which is cool with me. In 2019, around the end of 2019, my father was passing away. And I knew for a fact that he was gonna pass away because I had been his caretaker for a great deal of my adult life, which I don't feel any kind of way about, other than when it clashed with like, you're supposed to be an American man, self-actualizing, starting your own family, starting your own business. And then like this other side of me is like, you're supposed to be a good Dominican son, taking care of your aging parents who like gave everything to you. And at that time, the only thing I could really think about in that grief, in the knowledge that I was gonna fail at it, was to surrender completely. So in this passage that you read, I just find it funny that, you know, life has a way of teaching us what it is that we need to do, and sometimes feeling it out, as vulnerable as that makes you feel, and as like dangerous as it feels sometimes, if you've never really let go of control, like me, I'm a little bit of a control freak. It really spoke to me. So grief can be transformative. At least it has been for me.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to share a little, if that's okay too.
Yes.
This passage really resonated with me. I write about grief a lot because I am a mother. I lost my son. And I think that in my writing of grief and reading so much about grief, at the core of it is love. And I love that the passage, you know, where there is grief, there is love. I think when I write about my story and I write about my grief, it always starts with love. And it is transformative, and it's something that you really have to, like Eduardo said, you kind of have to release yourself into it. And grief is something that once you have it, you learn to live with it, right? There's not this like linear stage of like, you know, you go through this, and then boom, it's done, right? It's something that I think Senya also mentioned, right? It's like a cycle where you're living with it and it's a process. So this passage, like I said, really resonated with me. And I think that when we talk about grief, we always have to talk about love, because where there is grief, there is love.
Thank you so much, Adela. I'm so sorry for your loss. And I really thank you for being here and also sharing that light of where grief and love really share the stage simultaneously, and how we make space and hold space for grief really is holding space for the love that we've always had and how that transforms over time, but also expands in a way. And so I thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your story with us.
I was gonna say thank you for the vulnerability that it takes to, it's very brave to share. That's a deep grief that it's very vulnerable to share that.
Thank you, Senya.
Thank you, everyone.
I also see Idalmi that wrote in the chat. I volunteer at a center where they do grief circles for folks here in Newark. And another thing I want to bring up is that grief and loss can be felt not only from death, but also from the loss of a relationship, loss of physical things, opportunities, etc. And right, also a loss of what we thought we would be and what it would be. So many layers in this powerful energy, and Senya as well, like death of a relationship that we know will never be a marriage, etc. Yes. And I think another thing to Gwendolyn, if you'd like to share, yes, you can also share.
Gratitude for this space and for everybody's shares. We're new to this space and grateful for the holding. And one of the things that we'd like to bring into the space now that we've been moving through is the grief that joy brings sometimes, and how it is that sometimes these beautiful experiences can remind us of painful times and can remind us of like how we have not had those experiences and those things, you know. I grieve for like the little girl inside of me, you know, and all of the versions of her that we're still sort of calling back into us, you know, like we grieve for, like someone said, like the relationship, for example, that will never be, you know, and that could never be. And we also grieve for like this beautiful love that we are currently experiencing, knowing one that like there's been so much that we've had to traverse to even get to this place, you know, of like being like at the door of love in this way. And also the grief of like understanding that like eso también va a cambiar. En cualquier forma and iteration, I see you. Like in whatever form and iteration that it takes, like there will be change there. And there's already like a grief that we experience in even like accepting and receiving like the beauty and the love of the world. You know, it's like the sadness of seeing like a beautiful sunrise, you know, like that bittersweetness, you know, of like the everyday sort of like sadness that we walk in, of like knowing ultimately like our impermanence, you know. Yeah, there's something there for us. And you know, there's never any sort of like qualification or like hierarchy of grief, but like, yeah, just highlighting like that marriage between, and like that like deep flow and connection between like joy and grief, you know?
Wow, that was so beautifully put, Gwendolyn. And I love that you mentioned being able to grieve the little girl in you and all of the past versions of her. And in the process of what that unfolds in our journeys, like that was so beautifully put. You guys are sharing so many insightful things, and I'm honestly just very grateful for what you're bringing, in sharing your vulnerability and bringing your vulnerability here for us to like come partake in together. I did choose these pages intuitively, I guess is the way that I would explain it. in the sense that I have been grieving a lot in my own life. And I think that as I was like reading through different prompts or reading through different pages and allowing myself to let like whatever pops up to me and just speak to me, this was the one that just felt needed to be heard from myself. And I wanted to also share and understand how much that is probably also sharing with other people. So thank you so much again. I'm going to move on to the first prompt. Hold on. Okay. Is it? Wait, give me one moment. Okay. So the first writing prompt we have, describe a transitional period in your life where you make sense of your grief. Where did grief last leave you? So we have 10 minutes. Just give me one moment. So at 12:18, we'll reconvene and we'll come back. And so, yeah, I want you to go about this prompt as whatever comes natural to you and how you would like to write it in that form. You don't always have to incorporate free writing into your experience, but I normally do take a minute or two to free write to allow myself to see just what flows out initially, and then to go forward with writing however that comes, to me. And so we'll meet at 12:18, and I'll also write the question in the chat. in just a few minutes, we'll be coming back. So until 2:19. All right, hello everybody. So we'll be reconvening. I just wanted to know that we are reaching the point of 12:30 in 10 minutes. That's normally when the workshop ends. There's still more to this workshop, so if you do have the space and time, and you'd like to stay, you can. But I also understand if you cannot and you do have to leave by 12:30, I respect your time and I thank you so much for showing up. As we get started, I want, just give me one moment, but so as we get started, we'll have, I ask like if two of you can share, if you'd like to share what you've written for the prompt. Okay,
I
so
can
Diana.
also.
Yes, thank you. I don't know. I don't think I've written about consciously, like written about grief, like actually thinking about it. So I went with the flow of what came to me. And it says, grief. I never speak of you out loud, but I feel you squeezing my heart to see if I still feel, remember, miss, love, hate, embrace. The memories are parts of me that still hide in the attic of my mind, collecting dust and heaviness. Sometimes I feel you creeping in when I feel the most happy, as if you want me to remember, as if you want me to never forget that there is a chance of getting hurt again. I grieve, and when I do, I drown into the deepest parts of my being, recollecting the tiniest details of what was once alive in my life but no longer lives in it, wondering what could have been, where I would be, was the lesson worth it? Why is it so hard to breathe? Grief reminds me that there is no light without darkness, and for that, I guess I am grateful. That's what I wrote.
Wow, that was very powerful. I love the way that you opened it. Grief, I never speak of you. And going into the ways like that grief has furrowed into your being in experiences without understanding it consciously, but still simultaneously allowing it to speak through you unconsciously. So I really love that. I love that. And I appreciate that so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And I also see Leslie with her hand raised.
Hi. I don't know if I ever made sense of my grief. I just accepted it. Right now, I realize that I am grieving living in the city. I moved on the 10/31 and had to look back. On a day last week, I left work and went to Trader Joe's. I pretended that I could still do that. I got home at 10:30 p.m. and it impacted me the next day. I realized that I could come back and live and that I could never let it go, really. I love New York City. I was born there, here. But it's not a city always for me. I will come back to it, but for now I need to let it go.
Thank you, Leslie. I feel you so deeply in grieving a city, grieving a home, the loss of a home or the change of what home used to be and meaning to you is so deeply felt. So thank you. We have time for one more share. I see in the chat, Kiki.
Hello. Yes. I apologize because grief is something that I'm still working through, so I do get a little emotional about it. But I wrote, sitting in a small New York apartment next to Jimoning. Jimoning, her sister, Abuela's sister. Abuela, who passed a year prior and who she looks so much like. Abuela, who I see in the clouds on my daily walks. Abuela, who gives me a breeze that feels like a warm scarf wrapped around my shoulders anytime I feel discomfort. Abuela, who spoke on the phone with mommy every morning, her and her daughters, talking about whatever chismosa they can, talking about whatever chisme they can, anytime that they could. Any news they hear, they call each other. And while I miss her, and while I grieve her, I still see her, and I still feel her. And I'm so grateful for her. Sorry. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Kiara. Thank you so much. And I know that that took a lot to just share out, and I really am grateful for the love that you were able to share with us, the love that you had for your abuela, and the love that abuela spread through you and through your voice. And I really do want to thank you guys. I feel like I'm saying thank you over, but I'm just really so grateful. I understand the vulnerability, and sharing these parts of our hearts and spaces isn't an easy task at all. At times there are moments where we even compartmentalize it and put it into a box and shelve it away as much as possible. And that in its own time and space is okay as well. I also am just grateful for the opportunity that we have to be able to share that with each other. And so I really thank you guys for your stories, for your pieces of life, your pieces of experiences that also touch me as well, but also sharing with the group in order to do that. So thank you. Thank you. As we move forward into the next portion of the workshop, as we move forward to the next portion of the workshop, I'm sorry if it's taking me some time to actually gain my words. I feel like I'm also making sense of this topic as I'm here with you guys. And I'm also just living vicariously through you while expressing my own sentiments of grief as you share. And so thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for being in this process with me. The reason why I felt called to this workshop to begin with is that a big portion of my life is in the people that I speak to. I feel like as a writer, we are speaking to people all the time. And for me, it's the amount of different communities that come together and that I'm able to share space with. And a big portion of my spirituality came from being in a tight-knit community, growing up Roman Catholic and very much ingrained in the church, and then having my own family spirituality that existed outside of Catholicism, which had its own sector of community as well. And so when it came to sharing what spirituality and creative journaling combined and bringing it together, it was more so of how we make sense of ourselves and who we are out into the world is always an ever-changing process. And so being able to put that down in somewhere that you can record and see for yourself and make sense of what the present may feel like, while also making sense of the past. So thank you so much for sharing. And my thing keeps freezing, I'm sorry. So the next portion of the workshop that we're getting into is the history of the writer's responsibility, right? As writers throughout history, we have always held a sacred responsibility in our communities, right? Whether it is to record actual history, whether it was the people that wrote spiritual sacred texts, whether it was transcribing traditions and recipes and making sense of what was explained to us orally and putting it down so that we can collect together. And so when we take note of the history of spiritual writing, it's a method that has been used from the beginning of recording divine teachings within our community and within ourselves. And so I guess like when I speak of spiritual writing, what I speak to is the meditative practice that comes with channeling information and transmuting information that comes from within, from our ancestors, from our higher selves, from our spirit guides, that comes through in the forms of inspirations, that comes through in the form of ideas, that comes through in the form of consejos, of what to do and be guided through in our next phases in life. So when it comes to us as, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. So when it comes to us as writers, there are so many different reasons and as to why we meditate in that way, right? I feel like because we're in this profession or because we're in this modality that we find ourselves in, it is a natural expression of the spirit. It is a natural expression of the soul, of what has been hard to say through the voice that came through our body. And that is us, something that I also really appreciate in the gift of writing in and of itself, is seeing the spiritual come into the physical, right? Spiritual writing has always had the ability to release pent-up energy, but also to be able to bring forth a new life and a new energy and a new way of being, right? Whether we're releasing our emotions, we're releasing someone from the past, we're writing letters of what is no longer. and also having the ability to bring something new into our lives, writing down changes that we'll make, writing down a to-do list of what we're going to do throughout the day, writing down a meditative form of action, a form of action that we are inspired by it, by being. And so I have, you know, another thing to recognize is that writers, we are and have always been the keepers of secrets, truths, and inner knowings from both our lineage and our collective. Our sacred responsibility comes from honoring our voice, upholding the voice of others, and discovering ourselves through the life experience, right? And this comes in many forms, right? A lot of the times when we write certain characters in, they may not necessarily be speaking to ourselves, but someone that we know, and what consejos we would be able to give them and to channel for them. And when I think about, let's say, meditative, the meditative practice of spiritual writing, I think of how often our ancestors reflect back on the experiences that they've gone through from what we're experiencing currently. And what I mean by that, I guess, is also an explanation of what you believe and see as an ancestor. I'm one of the people that hold the beliefs that we are the ancestors, we are our current ancestors, while also upholding the belief that our ancestors are hold our entire lineage and way of being from the beginning of time and the beginning of our soul incarnation. And so this practice is for us to honor that, to honor the ancient wisdom and divine knowledge that comes through us, because we all have it. We all have this innate knowledge that comes through our intuition. We speak it fluidly when we're talking to our friends, when we're talking to our family members, when we are in our positions of in our jobs, right? And to the people that we connect with day to day. And so one of the things that I wanted to get into this next writing prompt is looking at the ancestors that speak within us. Right, so for this next writing prompt, I will cut it down to 7 minutes instead of 10. So we'll come back at 43, starting at 12:43. And the prompt is, which ancestor or ancestors speak to you in your life? How has their influence shaped your voice? They can be from your own lineage or people that you've admired and that have passed on. And within this prompt, I want you to keep in mind that it doesn't only have to be limited to your writing, right? Like how they speak to you in your life in your writing, but more so how you can experience a divine force that may be beyond you and how that influences your life. So we'll come back in 7 minutes. Okay, everyone. All right, so we'll be circling back in. And again, thank you so much for your time and for staying through with the workshop. If we have time for one person to present, if they'd like to share this prompt or how it connects with you, and you can always share in the chat as well. I'd read it out loud. Dries, yeah.
I can share. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's great.
Yeah. So this prompt kind of inspired me to do a little poetry, which I don't really do, but I'm gonna share, which is kind of nervous because it's very vulnerable. Because it's a space that I don't really am comfortable with, but I'm gonna try it. Okay. With chained bare feet they dance, with beaten backs they laugh, with burnt hands they drummed, with broken spirits they sang. I will always be grateful for the resilience of my ancestors and the way they use music and dance to survive. The energy that was transmitted through each music beat is what allows me today to be free. And in that way too, with a broken spirit, I will sing. With a lonely heart, I will laugh. And with a tired body, I will dance. The end. So this prompted was kind of like from, I think, just in general of a lot of our ancestors and what they've created a legacy in our culture specifically. When I think about like Dominican people, one of the things that I admire the most is our resilience to be happy through music and dance. And anytime I resonate with that a lot. And anytime I think of those hard days, like I always kind of just pull back to that resource of what music and dance means to our culture.
That was everything. Thank you so much. And being able to honor them through this practice also, I love that. Well, just speaking for Dominican culture, how deep it is in our music and in our rhythm and what we're able to share. And so I love that you were able to describe that. Thank you so much. I loved that so much. It was very beautiful, very beautiful. And I know we're reaching close to 1 o'clock, so we only have one more writing prompt, if that's okay with you all. And please feel free to share in the chat, because everyone's going back and forth in the chat, and it'd be okay to just share within us in the chat if you don't have the space to speak out loud.
I wanted to mention something.
Yeah.
If I could. It's a little nerdy of me, but that's me. So I was, in the beginning, I think someone mentioned that they actually had church right before this. I forgot who.
Yulisa, yeah.
Yulisa, yes, because I've seen Yulisa before in the writer's circle. Yo quería, just to give a little like understanding, I grew up Catholic as well, the whole 9 yards, first communion picture, toda la vaina, confirmation. And one thing that I realized, I studied a lot of different things, not practiced, just studied. When with most major religions, especially like with Dominican culture, the power is external, right? So the going to church and praying and all those things are things that you're going outward to get relief for the grief and the pains of everyday life through Jesus, right? And through the communion, through the confirmation, through all these initiations, really, and where you continue to build within the religion. Whereas with when you look at spirituality or like other spiritual practices, I just wanted to go in through like the features. It's about communion within.
Right.
So that's a big difference with going within to get power versus going out to get power. So I felt that going within myself to get power was mind blowing because I always thought I had to go to someone else. I had to pray. I had to do a certain thing to get a result instead of it coming from within me. I never knew that was possible until and I don't even like using the word spirituality, but just something else other than what I was told.
and in church, but I still do a lot of the things that I learned in church as like a starting point for me. And another thing was about my ancestors are rocks and animals, and looking into like what did African people study, what did the Tainos believe, and looking at not just myself, but in when I used to read the Bible a lot, it was all about humans. And it wasn't including the rocks, and it wasn't including the rivers, and it wasn't including all types of people from all genders, all walks of life.
Right.
And once I became more into like, what did my Taino ancestors and that's what my ancestors taught me, to look at everything, not just me. And I think that I live in DR, and you know, you go outside and there's mad trash, and you're just like,
Right.
what the,
Oh
you
my
know,
God.
and but there's reasons for that. And it's not every neighborhood. That's another thing too. Not every place in DR is horrible. But aside from that, when you think about what if we were taught as part of our religious beliefs, as part of our Taino and our African like beliefs within us all, that is part of us. How magical would it be if we looked at a tree as part of who we are, instead of just Jesus only, that's it? I wonder if we would be throwing garbage like that. Like if we honored that is also God. And that's why I'm like, there needs to be a conversation about this. I'm not saying you gotta leave the church, but we gotta tie some things in, because this ain't
We gotta unravel a little bit more. And I love, honestly,
Yeah.
thank you so much for the inputs that you have put in, because it really has resonated deeply with me, and I'm sure with many others as well, like inciting something within us to explore more, because eso sí, of understanding that God isn't only of the human aspect, but of all that encompasses what we exist in. And even what you mentioned earlier about you studying biology, right? And that nothing ever really lives, but nothing ever really dies. And I love that understanding of life, of that, how where we exist in now is the all-encompassing God that we search for, that is within us and outside of us as well. But that is just my personal belief, you know. But one of the things that, again, like honoring our land, honoring native land, one of the spiritual mentors that I had for a while is an Indigenous brother, and he would explain to us that in his culture, in his practice, and what they believe in, is that every being on earth has a spirit and has its own sage wisdom and knowledge. And so whereas, for example, you know, we take sage to smudge, he would say that sage is a spirit of itself. The plant wisdom that is in the plant sage, that spirit has existed from the beginning, from the formation of earth. So sage, like its name in wisdom, also carries the ability to cleanse you without you needing to smudge, but with you asking internally, or asking sage for the permission to cleanse, because it has its own spirit. It has its own, que tiene domina over its own life. And so when we think about what we share on earth, and how many things are in our same space, and how many of those same spirits aren't only tied to a human form, we recognize that there's so much to learn within each other through our experiences of the land that we live on. Because even with DR having all the trash, it also has like an innate feeling. Like I feel like Hispaniola or Quisqueya, in whichever way that you see it, it has its own espíritu, you know, from the things that it's experienced, and it's transmuted through its people, but you see it very deeply and innately with the land. And I noticed that a lot when I experience my time in DR. It's just what the land says to you before you decide what you want to say to the land. And so that's something too, is like, how can we honor our land? How can we honor our ancestors by honoring the land that we live on?
there was something else that I wanted to mention as you were talking and I was looking at the chat. I was trying to like multitask. My mentor told me that there's a difference between taking a plant and using it and taking. There's a difference between taking and what you just mentioning, asking for permission from the plant. You know, and I don't believe that anything's new. I know that anything that I know intuitively or that we're passionate about that we might, for me, at least that we might call new or like new because we saw it on TikTok or because whatever, it's ancient knowing. I ask permission for plants before I don't even kill a mosquito here. and in the campo, we got a lot of mosquitoes, but I'm just like, they're just trying to feed their kids. And am I uncomfortable because I think
No,
like that, you know?
No,
It's
because
just
I feel you. I'm sorry.
a lot of tough stuff, but I just wonder a lot about like all these things that it's like at least I feel that it's within, and every new generation, I know we're gonna see more and more of it. More and more of it. Every generation that's born, a lot more.
And I think it's also wonderful to see that there's also like a resurgence of people wanting to really connect with that, connecting with the spirit of who they are and who they've always been versus what we've been told programmed to see of like how life should be experienced or what are the stages to life. Because I think Adela mentioned it earlier that, you know, grief in and of its form isn't linear but cyclical, and I feel that life is experienced in that same cycle. I always see it as like the spiral of the circle. We're here at this one point, then we're at this point, and then we come back at this point, and then it'll just spiral into the same lessons over. And so I see there was a lot written in the chat, and I'm sorry if I wasn't able to like read through all of these, but yes, Leslie. We will put a pin into this conversation. I thank you so much, Senya, for your input, because that was really something that was able to unfold, and what I had was thinking of in terms of our ancestors. So we have one last prompt, and this is a practice that I use regularly when it comes to journaling, right? A lot of the times I want to ask myself, where am I in the past? Where I am now? How is the past dictating me now? Sometimes I'm not consciously thinking of my actions at all times, as we do, as we live. Right? We're living and breathing and we're doing and we're constantly moving and we're always in motion. And so when it comes to in terms of seeing the cyclical patterns of who we are and what we've experienced, right? Those experiences sort of build a new layer of ourselves over and over as we continue to go out into the world, right? So one of the substantial aspects to journaling is our ability to learn from the past and transform the narratives that no longer resonate. And why I really appreciate having the physical form of a journal, or whether it's a Google Docs, a Google Drive, is to be able to look back on past entries, seeing where you were in those space and time, and seeing that you're no longer in that space. Or maybe you refound an inspiration that was in there, an anecdote that you left for a future version of yourself to take hold of. And so for this last prompt, I want us to take 5 minutes. I know it says 10, but I just want us to take 5 minutes to really just take a moment. And I want you to use this as sort of a free writing tool to see to pinpoint where, but as always, you're able to write however feels more natural and comes to you, where you find your fluidity best. And so this last prompt is, Where in the now do you find a past version of you making the decisions? Where has life been taking you currently that could use your surrender? So we'll come back at 106. And in just a moment, we'll be coming back into the shop. Okay. And I just want to thank you guys so much for your time and your space. I know we made it significantly past the 12:30 mark, so I really do appreciate you extending your time to be with us and to be with me today. If two people would like to share what they came across or what they reflected on in this prompt, you can raise your hand or write into the chat. Jasmine?
Hi. So your first question was, where in the now do you find a past version of you making the decisions? I'm realizing that my past version of me is someone that kind of like blocks her heart. Does that make sense to people? Like, I have a hard time opening up to loving others, not necessarily in a physical way, but in an emotional, secure way, like feeling secure about it. I find myself that my past version of me is someone that's really blocked off to expressing, love emotions. Does that make sense? And is also someone that kind of keep to myself because of it. And I think I've had a reflective thought of self-sabotaging shit. Does that make sense? Because of it automatically. And it's not like I mean to per se, it's just the fear takes over, right? And so that part of me, I know, is something I've been dealing with literally my entire life. And so what I've noticed recently is that sometimes I attract people with the same shit, And so that past version of me is what I'm trying to really navigate, right? I need to surrender that, I kind of like need to like break that off. Do you know what I mean? That relationship I have with like my emotion self, right? And so the second question was, where has life been taking you currently that could use your surrender? So my answer to that second question, where life been taking me, yeah, can I surrender the fear of loving someone that will hurt me again and again and again? So surrendering, let's say for me, like, and this is personal, my dreams of actually having my own family, like that's huge for me. And there's a lot of fear surrounding that. And kind of like, I'm at a point where, yeah, I should surrender it over to the divine. I can't control that shit. So, especially because me as an individual, having those fears and that block, right? It kind of makes it more difficult for me than someone else, and everybody else probably in this group that may have already a family. See, all that is new to me. Not the family that I was brought into, but the one you create, right? So yeah.
It definitely resonates, Jasmine. Like, especially, I'm sure many others feel the same too. Thank you. And I love what you brought into of just understanding that those different blocks do play a part, and it's natural as well. Like, we all have our own blockages, we all have our own stopping points, and why it is for why that reason does come about to us in our lives. And so I feel like what I'm hoping is that these prompts, and that in the future, when it comes to self-exploration, that we discover more of what will open us to the curiosity in those blocks, and understanding how we can allow ourselves to feel free with, one, having them, and two, understanding that it's also okay to release them over time. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And you know, people assume that, you know, everyone that might have like a block, you know, heart chakra or whatever, you know, it's because of the upbringing, you know, or something like that. And that may not be the case. I know my parents love me unconditionally in a very healthy way. And also everyone else's kids that we grew up with, you know, love my parents because they love everyone and everything that moves. They were that kind of parent. But what happened in my case was that my parents got divorced. So it wasn't that, you know, when I was 14, my sister was 12, my brother was 3. And so what happens is that I feel my siblings and I have this subconscious fear. You know, we don't really talk about it. We don't express it in that way, you know, because we do love each other and our parents very much so. But it's that fear that, okay, you know, it's kind of like stepping over the bridge, you know, like I look down and should I do it? Should I do it? You know what I mean? And then what we noticed is that my brother, who was only 3 when the divorce happened, he just jumped in and got married before all of his older siblings, you know, and kind of, but, you know, the rest of us were like, what's over there? You know, kind of thing. And so, you know, people usually think it's like men that have this non-committal crap, but it's not necessarily commit. I can commit to everything and anything. That's not even an issue. It's again, that quintessential fear, right? Of being hurt, which is part of life, right? And I think that's where grief comes in and all these intertwining emotions, right? That,
Right.
you know, that fear of losing.
And like you mentioned earlier too, it is a process that it's unfolding in and of itself. So thank you for also sharing that too, about your family, and like understanding that everyone processes it differently, even if you have the same or similar upbringing, and that varies in differentiations. Guys, I know we are so late on time, so I don't want to keep you any longer. I really want to thank you so much for joining this workshop. We talked about it a couple of times in the chat. There's so much into these topics, and in reality, we only have so little time. And maybe in the future we can discuss certain aspects of each topic further. And yeah, I would love to have a part 2, especially to dive deeper into certain portions. But I just want to say thank you all for joining. Thank you all for staying as well. And I hope you get to enjoy the rest of your Sunday as it comes.
Thank you, Karyll. You are most definitely welcome to offer a part 2. I'm pretty sure everyone here will appreciate it.
Oh, I would love that.
How much more was left of your presentation?
That was the final part of the presentation, but I skipped certain things in the middle to get to just the writing portion. But yeah, that was it.
Got it. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Happy Sunday. Next week, we're writing about fantasy.
Ooh. What kind of fantasy? PG-13?
Sci-fi, fantasy, sci-fi fiction, fantasy, not
Oh
erotic.
my gosh, I have
Oh,
to
good.
come.
They PG-13?
Yes.
He's like, what fantasies? I was like, what? Let me find out.
So the editor of our book, Salon, will be offering a writing workshop next week. So come through. We're going to be talking about world building, sci-fi, fantasy. It's a topic that many Latinos, well, Latinos here in the US don't touch too much, but in our respective countries, they do. Because sci-fi and fantasy is huge in Latin America and the Caribbean, but for some reason, Latinos don't write much of it here in the US. So you guys are more than welcome to try out that genre. Who knows what may come of it. So
yeah,
you don't need to go home, but you need to get out of here.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you
you,
so
everybody.
much.
Thank you, Karyll. Thank you.